Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. This one comes from Bertel. Katatonia. Endtime. After Jonas lost his voice during the tour, Katatonia had to take in another vocalist and picked Mikael Åkerfeldt. So this is going to be interesting. Katatonia, led by Opeth's singer. Let's see what's going on here. This is the track Endtime from Brave Murder Day. Let's dive in. Ooh. It went towards a bit of tension, a little bit of darkness peppered in there. You know, right here. A little bit of sorrow, a little bit of darkness. Oh no. We went somewhere different. It was lightening up after that. I do miss the progression from the intro. This 2-chord progression is fine, it's just not as expressive. Quite a few ideas already. The song's coming up to the halfway mark, and it really hasn't. Interesting note choices on the guitar line. Yeah, so we have this nice triplet pulse here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But the 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a nice triplet pulse within this 4/4. It keeps the slower overall vibe while having a more directioned groove.
They lost the earth in fire, waving to
It's an interesting growl style for Nico as well. I suppose older Opeth fans can weigh in here and let me know how close this is to some of the stuff he's done on Opeth, but it's not the sound I have in my mind for his harshes. And it may just be an element of layering. I'm just gonna say, I don't think this is my cup of tea. As usual, we're gonna explore things objectively, look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why this works as a track, but I can't say I enjoyed much of this. There were a couple of cool chord progressions, especially in the beginning of the song. I thought they really worked in that moment. The more expressive, longer progressions. Most of this track took place with two chord progressions, though, with a bit of movement between them to create the illusion of more information without actually giving us more chordal information. And the growls just never clicked for me. The guitar riffs just never really clicked for me. The constant changing of ideas, the sort of lack of directionality through a majority of this track never really clicked for me. And the ending was just, it was the icing on this cake, I guess. It's just, I don't get the ending either. Feels like a really strange idea. The layering and then the abrupt cutoff, just, I don't know. So much of this did not click with me subjectively. This is not something I would ever put on in my own time. But what is it doing right? This song does an excellent job at crafting atmosphere. Whether it is something a bit more moody, the opening is depressive, it's melancholic, but there's bits of uplift to it. Every chord progression tends to resolve in a positive way along that path we have in the opening, like 40 seconds or so of the song. We move from that into really heavy, brooding, massive guitars. It creates this feeling of weight and intensity. It's interesting that I don't think I would classify this as doom metal, but it is very doomy. I think there's something about the movement of the riffs that kind of point me in a different direction. But there is a general weight and slowness to everything that is very doom adjacent. I just don't hear the typical Well, honestly, you know what I think it is? It's the melodies in this song, the guitar riffs. They tend to have quite a bit more momentum to them. When we hit that triplet vibe in the middle of the track, that's got a lot of directionality, a lot of momentum. Granted, the tempo is on the slower side. You're still feeling it a bit slower, but it has a lot of movement to it because we are playing three notes for every beat. It really feels like it's trying to push through this weight, this negativity. I don't know where I would land this. It's kind of part of it feels like it's in the realm of gothic metal, but that also feels like it's not a great area to classify this as. That's more of like an aesthetic thing than I think a compositional one. The vocals, they're kind of doomy. But when I think of like, it's not heavy metal. It's not death metal. I guess I would have to classify it as doom metal. It just doesn't feel 100% doomy. But anyways, doom metal does a great job of atmosphere, and this does too. And a lot of it is moments like that second section. It's just a lot of weight, a lot of heaviness, very wide, large guitar tones. It is a song that feels overwhelmingly, I was going to say burdenful. I don't think that's a word. It feels like an overwhelming burden. And the entire track captures that vibe really well, save for the beginning, which captures its own feeling of melancholy and loss, and at least a little bit of hope, possibly, in that. The atmosphere writing on this track is consistently good. It tells the emotion it needs to using the sparse instrumentation that it has and absolutely leans into these moments. As cheesy as I think it can be taken, it perceives everything from a serious perspective and delivers everything seriously. And I think that is the strongest element of this song. Now, structurally, this thing is all over the place. It is a linear track, I believe. I don't think I heard any repeated ideas, although we did return back to a riff from earlier to wrap the song up. So there was some sort of coming back, ending where we started kind of idea. That was nice to kind of put a little bow on it of familiarity. But generally, the song just keeps exploring new ideas that are heavy and gloomy and brooding. I didn't find any of these ideas to be too connected. They all are capturing or exploring a similar vibe with slight variation to that. Some of them are moodier, some of them are heavier, some of them are more melancholic than others, but they all sort of focus on this heavy weight and a melancholic or negative atmosphere. And through that, there is a connection that ties all of it together, but very rarely are there any rhythmic ideas or melodic ideas that are continued from section to section. And in fact, I had mentioned when we got, I guess about 2.5, almost 3 minutes into the track, I said something like, we're getting to the halfway point and we're still continuing to do things. We haven't reached the song yet, the part that feels cohesive. We've just explored a bunch of intros. And that kind of didn't work for me. And some people are going to love that. I don't. I would have liked some more connectivity, some more growth, some sort of through line through all of that, aside from it's all gloomy. And that, like I said, that's going to work for some people. It's not completely disjointed. We're not jumping between genres or going from bouncy poppy to, a hardcore breakdown into some gothic melancholy stuff. No, I mean, it's all rather contained in what it's attempting to do. It's a very loose connection between these ideas. And it never really feels like it's going anywhere. It feels like we're starting off a tale and we start to get into it. Okay, where does this story go? And then we go to the next chapter and it's a new perspective, a new character. Also having, negativity in their life, moody and brooding. And you're like, okay, this is getting interesting. Maybe these two characters are going to meet. We go to the next chapter and, well, wouldn't you know it? It's a third character here. Also still quite moody. Lots of goths in this story, but their paths aren't connecting in any way. And that's what this feels like. The opening half of this song feels like a vignette of intros to ideas that never really get expanded on. Eventually, the song does reach a point of some connectivity of sorts. We do have the first time the vocals come in, I'm going to call this a verse. And then we have a lighter section with some clean electric guitar and clean vocals. And then we come back to the heavy guitars with the growls again. This kind of feels like a verse, chorus, verse structure, but the two verses are distinct enough, which is very cool. I really like that. And that's where the song starts to really go in a direction and say, okay, we have a song here. We have connecting ideas. There's evolution to the writing. The song is following a set path. We're not stopping and starting in new places all the time. And I like how when we bring the harshes back, it's familiar. It's like the other time we had harsh vocals, but the riffs are slightly different. The energy is slightly different. It feels like a variation on the verse idea. This is phenomenal. Create a theme, dip away from it, come back to the theme with new ideas in it. Very cool writing. Love that part. This section of the song, I think, clicked the most for me. But then from here, we had an outro that played the riff over and over and over. And then we removed some of the layers and had just a single guitar on that riff, and then some noise, and then another guitar came in, and we just got feedback over here on the left, and these two competing ideas, and there's harmonic dissonance in there, and there's clashing sounds. It's just, it's chaos. This can work thematically. The song is called Endtime. Having clashing sounds and chaos and harmonic dissonance and two melody lines that are doing counterpoint but not really working around each other, being very frictional with each other, a random feedback pitch over here and then an abrupt stop. Yeah, dude, that can absolutely describe the final moments of something, whatever that something is. I think from an artistic point of view, this works, assuming that the lyrics kind of push into this direction. But musically, it was a song that I had a tough time clicking with, the song that never really found its groove, and then once it did, it decided to upend that rather quickly. So I found this song to be more frustrating than anything. But it does do a phenomenal job in this pocket here of creating some sort of structure, of creating growth and expansion of sounds. And the atmosphere overall is exceptionally consistent. It's doing a lot of things right, and I can see why people would like this, particularly those who like more progressive writing. Even looking at the genre, like I had mentioned earlier, it feels doomy, but I couldn't really classify it as doom. It feels gothic, but doesn't really feel like it would be a gothic metal track. It is progressive, pulling influences from a lot of places. It's linear in structure, but still features elements of callback. It's well written. It just never quite clicks for me. The last thing I want to bring up real quick is just Mikkel's vocals. I had mentioned earlier that they're not what I expected. I have listened to a lot of Opeth. Y'all have really introduced a lot of them to me. But it's still quite a bit less than I'd say most Opeth fans, especially given how many albums they have. I'm pretty sure I've only heard like 9 or 10 songs from them, so a small portion of their work. But I remember the first couple of times I heard his growl, I likened it to Tatiana's growl from Ginger. And I hypothesized early on that Ginger molded her harsh vocals against Mikkel's. I don't know if that's true, but it just sounds so similar, and Opeth is really big in the metal world. It kind of makes sense to me that that might be an influence for her. This doesn't sound anything like that. So either I'm completely misremembering what his growls sound like, or there's a difference here. Or maybe there's just a difference in his older growls too. This is 1996, and I don't know that I've heard too much Opeth from this era. I think most of the Opeth y'all have sent me is later in their discography. So that might be it as well. But this is a very thin type of harsh where I can hear a lot of the compression, the bouncing element of the vocals, and it's not overly processed. And I think that's what really stands out to me is that it actually feels under processed, almost quite raw. I'm sure there's a little bit of EQing and all of that, but it doesn't quite feel like what the modern growl sounds like. And I think that's pretty awesome. I actually like this over the more processed harshes that we have in more modern metal sounds. I also think that it matches the atmosphere really well because the instruments themselves aren't too processed either. There's a balance to everything, but it still sounds, well, to use the word again, I suppose, under-processed. The drums don't quite have a lot of punch to them. They're there, but they're kind of flat. The guitars feature that same thing. They're filling the space. They sound great. They have big size. They're punchy. They're low end, but they're kind of, well, actually, I take that back. They're not punchy. They're large. They're heavy, but they're not punchy. They're kind of lacking impact. They're also kind of dull. And so I think bringing in vocals that are kind of underproduced works really well alongside all of this. It gives it that specific flavor, that specific spice that elevates it. It allows it to stand outside of, and see, maybe that's another thing too. When I think of doom metal, I think of the really low, rumbly growls where you can barely even understand the words. This vocalist is enunciating very clearly. There isn't too much production on it to overshadow the enunciation. It sounds like this guy is doing this harsh vocal type live in front of me, no microphones anywhere. It's just I'm standing in front of him, he's producing this sound. Whereas in a lot of metal, when I hear growls, it feels like it's not what I would hear if they moved the microphone away. It'd be close. It'd be like 70% there, but there's stuff that's going on in it to make it larger, to make it boomier, to make it less thin, to give it that impact that a lot of metal today kind of expects the vocals to have. In a sense, this almost feels like indie doom metal, if that were a thing. And it has a charm to it, much like indie rock and more independent styles of production like used in Midwest emo. It has that extra little bit of charm to it that absolutely sells a level of authenticity to it. I think it's present everywhere on this track. It's very cool to kind of come away from this and having that appreciation for it. Given that the song itself bounces off me, I still find a lot of really cool things going on in it. Let me hit the lyrics real quick, and then we're going to wrap this one up. Now, looking at the lyrics, I think I want to go back and listen to the song again on my own time, knowing what the lyrics are kind of focusing on here, and seeing if I can't find any of these elements in particularly, I think, the opening instrumental couple of minutes. See if that might help me understand what they're trying to aim for with those, distinct jumps between ideas. We have a spoken word part at the beginning of the track that says, because for some people, solitude and isolation can become a problem. The reply is not for me. This dialogue is taken from Stanley Kubrick's film, The Shining. From here, we explore somebody who feels at home in isolation. It says, now fall into a vacant sphere, pierced by darkness. They call it death and surrounded me with sleep. Feeling alone, feeling isolated, and not even with light around you, pierced by darkness, surrounded with sleep. It's a really interesting way to describe what is for our narrator a comforting vibe. Although I wager that being surrounded by darkness and sleep might be comforting to some people. but maybe not the idea of this being an eternal sleep, as the third line states, they call this death. The verse says they lost the earth in fire, waved it into a sea. This is not what you saw, the earth in fire. I don't know what this means. It just seems to be a general destruction of the planet. We lost the earth in fire and waved it into the sea. Interesting, you would think that these would be opposite. But I wonder if this is about I don't know, a general like disaster kind of idea. I'm trying to think 1996. What was going on then? I think I was too young to really remember. I'd have to go look things up. But I wonder if there were ecological issues at play, that looking at increasing number of fires or water rising, or it could just be general disaster ideas too, about the land being swallowed by the sea, where land meets the sea, and the inland areas being consumed by fire, and just the interesting irony of fire and water working together to destroy the planet. And he says, this is not what you saw. And I don't understand that part. And then we just go back to the chorus about being surrounded by darkness, sleep, and death. And that's the song. I don't necessarily know what's going on here, but I do get a general vibe. And I do think that this feeling of being alone, seeing or witnessing disaster, whether it is real or not, I think that feeling of gloom and isolation and little bits of fear work really well with the music. And maybe even the ending. What if the water and the fire are representing the end times for this, for the human race, or maybe for the planet? All of the chaos of the final moments of the track being the chaos of the water and the fire consuming everything until it's gone. The song just abruptly stops. If this is true, I still am curious what I would take away from the opening 3 minutes. It's still sort of fresh in my mind, the highs and the lows of it, the good dynamic quality of, the restful, almost peaceful moments contrasted with the dreariness, the melancholy, the weight coming in after that, and then having the the acoustic guitar parts or probably clean electric guitar parts coming in, and this nice wave of dynamic control across the track. What is that supposed to represent alongside all of this? I don't know. So yeah, we're going to wrap this up here then. These are my thoughts on Katatonia's Endtime. What are yours? Did you enjoy this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Is there anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on if you disagree with something I said, or if I misspoke about something? Do you have a different take, perspective, or opinion on this song? Please put all of that and anything else you'd like to add to the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It'll take you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.